Brian Copeland with Randall Shreve today for Words and Whiskey. We have the Copper Run small batch whiskey today that I'm going to be sipping on anyway. He's got a gig tonight, so
yeah,
no whiskey for Randall today. But anyway, so you've been doing this whole traveling musician thing for a long time.
Yeah.
The first professional album that I could find online was from 2006. Is that?
Yeah, that was the first one. That's my first like out front. I was a drummer before that.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. When did during your time as a musician, what would you say has strengthened your love for doing this job, and what have been some of the biggest challenges to being a working musician?
Well, my love for the job as a job has been strengthened by getting better at it.
Mm-hmm.
I think, like, so it's just that raw passion at the beginning where you just want to do it. You want to get out there and do it. And then once I crossed that bridge and was actively, playing and making a living doing it, the desire to grow and make it something, keep it fresh for me, mm-hmm. is what kept it exciting, keeps it exciting. And then and what was the other half of that question?
Oh, and what are some of the biggest challenges to being a working musician?
Oh, well, time management for me,
okay.
Which I'm starting to I don't know, I guess become an adult. My time management was really rough in the beginning. Just, I don't know, not being able to put priorities where they belong. And so that's improved drastically, which has made my life better, and made the job easier. Just living by a calendar, making sure that I.
So do you try to have like a thing that you do every day, like you have like a routine that you do daily?
Yeah, I kind of have to have that routine. I've got little girls that need that,
mm-hmm.
and so once I started making that a priority, to give them that, I realized how much I needed it, and it just changed every aspect of the job and me. It changed me a lot. Just I didn't realize that life could be without so much of the anxiety. I didn't realize the anxiety level could come down.
Yeah, that's something I feel a lot whenever I play.
Yeah,
it's especially getting ready for shows and stuff like that. That anxiety is it's kind of crippling sometimes.
Yeah. Okay. So I deal with it exactly like that.
No, I think musicians that pretend like they don't, I think they're pretending.
Yeah.
I don't seem like somebody that has a lot of anxiety. I don't have that kind of persona about me. I don't think most people see that in me, but I don't see it in you when you're on stage.
You don't?
Not on stage.
I feel like it is blaring. I feel like
maybe backstage sometimes, like that kind of thing,
yeah.
but I haven't seen it on you like on stage so much.
Okay.
But I think all musicians deal with that in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, I think like even my brother, he's a musician,
mm-hmm.
and we're like in the same of the same caliber. I feel like we have the same offers and play a lot of the same venues. But he's the type who is like island time. That's a phrase that he uses often that drives me insane. But he'll show up 15 minutes before he's supposed to play and start setting up and start pulling out wads of cables. Like I can't be in the room.
Yeah, I can't imagine.
It's just like that. I have anxiety for him.
Yeah.
But I always kind of envied that he's able to not, over prepare and overanalyze. But then I see the other side of it. Down the road, I would see the other side of it and have seen since where he has that anxiety.
Oh yeah,
it's just building up, and he's not letting it manifest right there.
Yep.
Which I think is great, but then you've got a whole lot of you've got it like all piled up waiting for you that you eventually have to deal with.
See, that's what I used to do. I used to very much like pretend like everything was hunky-dory, and then by the end of it, it's like that much more just a struggle by the end of it, of like just hitting you, And honestly, the anxiety when it comes to shows, I mean, it's a rush, and then set up and play, and then a rush to get out of there, and it's always like you feel like you're always being pushed to like be faster about everything, and it's really hard to be, I don't know, a good musician in the midst of that sometimes.
Right. Yeah.
You know, with all the commotion and it's hard to kind of like slow things down and
for sure
and push it out and actually have a good show sometimes. You know,
Yeah.
Once you get lost in the music by the middle of the show,
Yeah.
it's usually fine. But at the beginning of the show, I always feel like I'm like, hey guys,
Yeah.
you know, like new crowd, new people, like new stuff, and a lot of people, you know, if you're going to places that people don't know you, it's very anxiety ridden.
Oh yeah.
You know,
new markets, they're so important, but you walk into it, and I don't know. For me, it's something that I'm working through still with therapy. Just the feeling of judgment that isn't the crowd's fault.
No.
It's not like they aren't necessarily judging me, but I am. It doesn't. I'm projecting it, you know, off of them. I'm believing it. And always have done this. And it just, I'm having to get to the root of that problem, which is internal.
And it's weird though, because I think sometimes though it is a judgment. Like,
Sure.
I mean, I think
It
people,
goes with
you walk
judgment.
into a bar and, you know, they don't know who you are, and you know, maybe it's a bar that doesn't really make sense for the way you look, or
Right,
whatever,
yeah,
and people look at you like, who is this guy? You know, I've played a couple biker bars where
Yeah.
I walk in and my music's fine. Like, people don't complain about that once I start playing, but they always look at me like, what are you doing here? You know, like you're some preppy dude.
Yeah.
I don't know why you're in this bar.
Yeah.
But it is what it is. I think that's something that will never go away completely.
Sure.
But if it did, what would be the excitement?
Yeah, I don't know how you, because the whole the energy that I feel I bring to stage, and I feel like this is kind of like we've said across the board to some extent. That energy is brought by holding the lid down on a boiling pot, and then venting it. You know, like giving doses of that energy rather than having a huge anxiety attack and exploding, you know?
Yeah.
So it does, you know, that pressure cooker is what you're using to prepare, you know, and hopefully give a good show every night.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I remember whenever I first met you, you were doing all the sideshow stuff. You were doing the, you know, Randall, Shreve and the sideshow. I think that's whenever my band opened for you the first time, and I met you the first time. What inspired you to do that style of a show?
Well, I've always been fascinated by like the older films and older music, and I wasn't really allowed to listen to much that wasn't like, I was a preacher's kid, and so I wasn't allowed to listen to much that wasn't, you know, church music. And when I was growing up, there was just not much good in that. And so when that restriction was taken away, I had a lot of catching up to do. And so it wasn't just whatever was happening at that time. I went back. I just found everything, you know, in, whether it was vinyl or CDs at the time, cassettes. I just wanted to catch up on everything and learn, and I was just absorbing, and somehow that, like, older stuff made it into my, you know, Scott Joplin and I think it's Paul Whiteman, I think it was. Anyhow, lots of those old things I don't even remember how.
The kind of ragtimey kind of vibe.
Yeah, and so it was just a feeling, you know. It was like when I started writing, after years of being on tour as a drummer, when I started writing and producing my first record, it didn't have a lot of that in it. It's like I was getting out like all the influences.
Yeah, I've listened to that first one.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
but then the second one I followed up pretty quickly and had with the first one I feel like I found my voice. With the second one, I started kind of writing in a way that was much more satisfying to me, and just realizing that I could, realizing that there were no limits and there were no rules, made me just kind of fall in love with all that, you know, silent film era again, and that ragtime. And I had when I lived in New York, I met Timothy Grace, who was like the only guy I knew who could play that stuff, you know, real. He like spoke that language fluently, and so that made it feel like I don't have to. I can, whatever I write, I can hear what he's gonna, you know, roughly what he's gonna do, and that, you know, that it'll sound more, you know, much more authentic with that piano stuff.
Yeah.
So when I lost him, I started, you know, hitting the piano a lot harder and learning how to play ragtime a little bit.
That's cool. Yeah, I've been playing more recently on piano, and it's fun. It's a cool instrument.
Yeah,
for sure. You can do a lot with it. Yeah, definitely. I mean, guitar has been a thing forever. So.
Yeah.
So I've done multiple instruments in my life. I played saxophone. I did all that stuff.
Oh, cool.
But like, yeah, piano, I never tried really, which is weird because my grandma plays and stuff, and I would think that I would have.
Yeah.
But for some reason, I never really got into piano.
Yeah.
And recently, yeah, it's just one of those cool things. But the ragtime feel is cool. I always thought that was cool, and I felt like it really brought a lot of energy to your shows. I feel like the crowd really got into that. I think that was something that like really brought in a lot of people to your shows. You know what I mean? Didn't you have a name for the crowd or something? Weren't they called like?
Let's see. Well, they went through stages, and they kind of gave themselves the.
Okay.
There was Freaks, and some variations on that, and then there was Church of Randall.
Okay, yeah.
They called themselves the Church of Randall, and I think that was when I was like getting a lot of the toxic religion washed out of me, and so I was writing
a lot of that
stuff. Pretty. You could hear the frustration with just religion, and so I think that's where, you know, people kind of
latched onto that side of it.
Yeah, because once you start talking about that kind of stuff, you realize that I would say the majority of people have some bad experience. So it was another common thread that we
good connection kind of thing. Yeah. That's cool. Yeah, that's something that I feel like I've always wanted and struggled more with, is finding that real connection with the audience when it comes to like what I'm writing. Like I feel connected whenever I'm playing and everything else, but finding that connection to where they really latch on to it, you know, and I think that that's one of the hardest things to do as a musician, is to have people like really latch on to like the direction that you're going or whatever else. So I always thought that was cool. That was something that I got into whenever I'd come to your shows back whenever you did the sideshow thing, especially. And it was, you know, and it wasn't my thing. It wasn't like I was like one of the people that was like into dressing up and doing all the stuff, but it was just cool to like be a part of that, you know, like see how it was, you know.
It's a support group. And it's still like anything I do. I feel like just like the temporary guide for a support group.
Yeah.
You know, different support group. You know, like multiple support groups. That's what it feels like.
Yeah. I can see that. For sure. Is that something you maybe want to do again more, or is that something that you still embrace sometimes? Like...
Yeah. Well, I still write like that. I still the last record, which was the first one without the sideshow, I kind of wrote more straightforward. You know, it was like a cleansing, but I continue to write that stuff and the more straightforward stuff, and just kind of, you know, try to figure out where the next one's going, and take it, you know, one album at a time, one project at a time, and so I mean, I definitely I could see doing another album that kind of had that more of that feel, but I also don't want to put myself into, you know, a box.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel that.
The songs will always be there, and I've pulled songs in the past. Almost every album has years old songs. You know, songs that were supposed to go on a record, 2 records ago, and got shelved, and then they just like find their time and their spot on that next project or the one after that. There's just so I write and then kind of put together once I kind of see where songs were, what fits
for each album.
yeah.
Yeah, and that's one of those things that's hard, I know, for me, is to find just the songs that fit for each album and like really trying to mesh everything together, because I'm somebody that writes a lot of different styles myself, and so it's hard for me sometimes to like really mesh all those styles on an album. So doing that kind of thing and waiting on some of them is definitely a way that can help when it comes to the album side of it.
For sure. Like my bass player was telling me, because I was explaining this to him, he hasn't been in this part of the process, the part where we're just like writing and putting all these, songs on lists and making new lists. Okay, these are the songs I like the most right now, and this song doesn't fit anywhere, but it needs to come out at some point.
Yeah, and you can do those as singles sometimes.
Yeah. And so I was explaining this to him, and he was just like, why don't you just not think about it? Why don't you just like put all the ones that you like right now on an album? And I was like, because that's not the way I do it.
Well, and it doesn't have the same feel that way.
Yeah, well, it just sounds all over the place.
Yeah,
it's like people hearing, just hearing my brain, and I don't want people to hear that. I want to put some structure to it and be like, it's a presentation. It's not. Not.
Oh yeah, that's the whole point of it. Yeah.
And each part of that presentation has to be honest, but it doesn't have to be jumbled.
Yeah, and I think that's
scattered.
I think that's part of what has made you successful, is that presentation of things.
Yeah.
I mean, looking from the outside, I think that presentation side of it is what makes most musicians more successful. Like, you can write a lot of good songs, but if you don't put it together in the right package, people aren't going to see it the same way.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
So we talked about your brother being a musician. Is he the only person in your family that plays? Like, are you guys like a musical family?
No, well, yeah, Dad and Mom were both musicians. Would lead music in church, and that's how we came up, and that's where we started, in church, and then as more or less traveling evangelists. That was just the nature of things. That's what you did, and so Benjamin and I started a Christian rock band together, and toured. And then there are other parts of my family that they're musical. They just don't. They have to me, a very insulting point of view toward that being a career choice. And they just don't. They don't see it as an actual path.
Yeah, I can see that. So we tend to have, I feel like, whenever I've listened to you talk and whenever I, see things that you post on social media and stuff like that, I feel like we have a very similar kind of outlook of the world and the way that things are going. I'm just curious, music used to be one of those things that really changed the world, kind of changed things. The protest songs in the 60s, stuff like that. Do you feel like music still has that kind of ability and that kind of power that it used to have? Or do you feel like it's kind of waning when it comes to like the change that it can make in the world?
Well, that's a good question. I think that it's become more diluted. I think there way too many cooks in the kitchen, and it's it makes it hard to, like, Bob Dylan stuck out because he was the only one. Now that there are numerous Bob Dylans.
We're trying to be.
Yeah. Yes.
I knew what you meant.
Fair correction. There and people who do a good job at that sort of thing, but that was original at one point. That was fresh, and I think that when things, I think it's distracting to write things that are just so undiluted or undiluted influences.
Yeah.
Your influences are basically just being paid tribute to, which
For
is
a lot of
fine.
people, yeah.
It's fine to do. Like that's what my first album was. It was me getting all that out of the way so that I could write more freely, and I think a lot of people have to go through that. But I think the power that music used to have, I think that the power of music is limitless, but you have to tap into yourself. And you have to be writing authentic. And
I agree, and I think that people now like are trying to be something else. They're not trying to be themselves, and I feel like that's makes it a harder thing for music to be so powerful.
Yeah.
I mean, like Nirvana was themselves.
Yeah.
You know, Pearl Jam was themselves. Like, and then you had all the people trying to copy them forever.
Yeah.
And it's just one of those things that I think that people, rather than they want to make that quick money rather than just really being who they are. And there's people that are like that, but in general, I don't think that most of those people really write things that are, I don't know, that actually would change something. Things that I think most people are writing for fun and writing for dancing and all that kind of stuff now. And you know, there's very few, like Jason Isbell is one of my favorite because he's unreal, you know, as a songwriter. And I don't feel like there's very many people, and I don't think that's respected the same way as it used to be.
Right. No.
Which is weird to me.
Well, the industry doesn't give much room for that. It's you really are like an outsider to the industry if you're being a Jason Isbell, you know. And I'm glad for his success that he has had, but a lot of people still don't know who Jason Isbell is, but they know who, you know, whatever the most recent K-pop, you know,
or Cardi B or whatever. Yeah.
Which is all fine, but the music industry doesn't make a lot of room for, doesn't have any patience. It doesn't. It's still very, very sexist, very ageist. There's just the music industry is the problem with music.
Yeah,
it really is. I think people should take time. You know, take the time that they feel they need to produce, you know, an album or whatever, you know, whatever it is. And I think they should do it like the way they want to do it, the way that it's here, not make so many compromises so that it fits, you know, which has always been the case, but it's pretty bad right now.
It's gotten worse for sure.
Yeah.
And I think most, you know, I think most people know that there's a small amount of producers that make most of the radio hits and most of the hits in general. And that's just messed up in itself. You know, it used to be such an artist-driven thing, and I feel like now it's more of a producer, record label-driven thing. Yeah. And, you know, it used to be, I mean, even watching like the Queen movie, which we'll get to later, but even watching like that movie about them where they talk about like, we have to do something different. We have to do something weird in order to be something. We have to be ourselves in some way that is different than everybody else.
Yeah.
And I don't think people think that way anymore.
Yeah, no, for the most part, it doesn't sound like they do.
Yeah, right? Yeah. What is speaking of the Queen side of things, what's the most challenging thing about doing the Freddie Mercury tribute?
Oh, all the things. I mean, being somebody else and then transforming back to myself, you know? It's just just a lot of pressure. Now that one does come with judgment. That one I knew walking out on stage first time. Like, I understand how I'm being judged right now. I would do the same thing, but all the more reason to put the time in and just do, you know, the very best Freddie that I can do. And I mean, it's made me better. It's made me better at what I do, and because it really put me back in like a workshop environment, you know, where I was just spending hours and hours a day focusing on little details of, you know, of Freddie's voice and you know, just how he would pronounce things and how, you know, how his just everything. I mean, getting lost in that is a lot of fun. But I'm always now we've been doing it, well, with the pandemic. There's this year where we didn't do one, and we were about to do what I thought would probably be the last run of them. It was right at the top of the pandemic that they all were supposed to be, and so they all got canceled. And so it still goes on, like I picked up all those dates again, and the recovery from that, it's just been wild. It's been 3 years of doing that show, and one of the year in the middle we didn't do it, So we've done a few of them now, starting in July, and we'll do a few more for the years out, and I think probably a spring run of them. But I'm ready whenever, at the end of every one of those shows, I'm ready to shave the mustache off and start finding myself again.
Sure, man.
Because I can't really even listen to my own music when that's going on. It's I just have to be so entrenched in Queen music and everything. I love it, but that's the challenge, I think, is just making sure that I get lost in it and that I really give it all and get in that mode, but then get out of it for some time to reconnect with myself before I have to start, growing the beard back out so I can grow the mustache and focusing on Queen only.
See, and I've done the Chili Peppers thing.
Oh, nice.
And that was draining.
I bet. Yeah.
I feel like yours would be, the Freddie Mercury side of it, people are that much more about, but the Chili Peppers thing was so draining. Being Anthony Kiedis is that much energy on stage and that much just running around and rapping, which that was my first real experience of trying to rap those words kind of thing. Yeah. And it was weird, but it made me better. And then, I did a Jason Isbell thing.
Oh, I didn't even know that.
I just did it one time. We did the Chili Peppers one for 2 or 3 years, but I did the Isbell one just one time. It was just something I really wanted to get into his music deep and learn a lot of his tunes. And then now I'm doing the John Mayer one.
Okay, yeah.
And for that one, just being a guitar player is hard.
Sure.
And that's one of those things going into it. That anxiety and the amount that I prepare for that, the amount of hours that I spent just playing guitar, because I wasn't, I don't know, I'm not as good of a guitar player as him, and I never was, but I just always loved his music, and I thought it would make me better, and that's what I try to do personally with tributes, is try to do things that I think will challenge me and make me better at what I think I need to get better at.
They're really good for that, for sharpening skills that you don't even realize that you have.
Or that you wish that you had.
Yeah.
And it's a weird thing, and I don't think people use them the right way in that respect. I think that as a songwriter, I think learning from those artists is the biggest reason why I would want to do it. And it's just really hard to put into words the amount that it gives you after doing those tributes. The amount of new material that you have in your brain and stuff like that. It's a crazy and weird thing. Anyway, so you're when I come to your shows, you're usually pretty businesslike, and I'm assuming it's partially the anxiety and stuff like that. When you're setting up and everything like that. I don't think a lot of people get to see a more fun, silly side of you.
No, not a lot of people.
Yeah. So what would you say is something that is silly about you that you feel like a lot of people might not know that you're willing to share?
To a point. So I've got an 11 and 8-year-old daughter, daughters at home, and learn to floss, learn to do all these dumb dances that I don't know why they exist. But my daughters love them, and they think it's hilarious that I do. Seeing my girls go to school in the mornings, I'm usually standing at the window doing some new dance that's
like a TikTok dance or something. That's funny.
Yeah. Constantly, my dog has a personality that I've projected upon him, and I'm constantly using it to make my girls laugh. And that's not something that I bring to the shows. I am very very focused at those shows, and also there's just so much work. You know, it's not just like carrying in a guitar.
No, you have a whole setup.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so I get very focused, to take it very seriously.
That's a good thing.
Yeah.
But that's what these things are for.
Yeah, right.
It's for people to know something different about you.
Yeah.
And that's what I've tried. I wanna be able to do these kind of things more often and with different musicians, because it's just cool to learn different things about people that you might not get at a show.
Right.
You know, it's really hard to know a lot about a person when you just go to see them play music. Because
for sure.
we all have our own game face. Like, I'm not somebody that likes to talk in between sets. I don't like to have conversations with people much. I kind of just do my own thing. People want to have conversations, obviously I will, but like, it's just, sometimes it's a struggle. Like, you're trying to keep yourself kind of in the zone.
Right.
And I don't think people really get that sometimes. Whenever you see a baseball player on the field and they're in the dugout in between innings, they're usually kind of in the zone. You know, they're doing their own thing. It's the same difference. And I think sometimes people need to see the silly side and the side that like they don't know as much. You know.
Right. Yeah.
Yep. Well, cool. Well, I appreciate you for being on.
Thanks for having me.
That was the last question I had for you. I don't want this to go too long because then people might not watch it. Copper Run Distillery, check them out, and thank you guys very much for joining us. And thanks to Randall Shreve.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Check out his music. Where can people find the music?
Spotify.
Spotify's easy.
Wherever you listen to music.
Okay.
I feel like it's everywhere.
Okay. Do you have a website and stuff, right?
Yep. RandallShreve.com.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you guys very much. Have a good one.